I need to be honest with you. For the past 13 years, I have been prepping, and there is something I do not talk about much with other preppers in my area. While everyone is loading up on the same rice, beans, and freeze-dried meals at Costco, I have quietly been stockpiling 11 foods that most preppers completely miss. And the crazy part is that during the last supply chain breakdown, while standard prepper food vanished from shelves in hours, these 11 items were sitting fully stocked in stores. Nobody was touching them. The seventh item on this list is sitting in your local Asian grocery store right now for less than $3, while preppers are dropping $30 on inferior alternatives. And when I tell you about the fourth item, you are going to wonder why nobody in the prepping community ever mentions it. It has been used for thousands of years, costs almost nothing, and lasts longer than you or I will be alive. Here is what nobody talks about in the prepping world. We are all reading the same blogs, watching the same channels, and buying the same stuff. The problem is that when a real crisis hits, that is exactly what disappears first. Back in early 2020, I watched white rice get cleared out in 3 hours. Canned beans were gone by the afternoon. But do you know what was still there, fully stocked the next day? Every single food I'm about to share with you. The first food on this list is bouillon cubes. Okay, stay with me because this first one sounds boring, but it is absolute gold for your stockpile. I know you're thinking that this cannot be it, but listen to what I learned last year. I was talking with a guy who manages distribution for a major food company who has been 20 years in the business. He told me something that blew my mind. During the 2024 supply disruptions, bouillon cubes had zero shortage issues. Zero. While everything else was getting cleared out, bouillon sat untouched. Here's why this matters for your stockpile. 1 cube packs the same nutrition as 2 cups of broth, but takes up basically no space, and they maintain their flavor for years. I've got cubes in my pantry that are 3 years old, and they still taste perfect. Think about the reality of eating from your stockpile. When you're living off rice and beans for 2 weeks straight, what is going to destroy your morale first is the bland, repetitive taste. But drop 1 bouillon cube into that rice while it's cooking, and suddenly it's restaurant quality. Your family actually wants to eat it. I personally stock about 500 cubes. It cost me less than $30. That's 500 meals transformed from cardboard into comfort food. Compare that to those expensive freeze-dried meals preppers buy at $15 each. Here's my storage method. Pull them out of the cardboard boxes and transfer them into mason jars with those silica gel packets you find in shoe boxes to keep moisture away. They will literally outlast your rice supply. But here's what most preppers miss entirely. These are not just for flavor. In a survival situation, that concentrated sodium and minerals provide electrolyte replacement. That is preventing dehydration. The military figured this out decades ago. There's a reason bouillon is in every MRE. Nobody is fighting over bouillon cubes during a crisis. That's exactly why they belong in your hidden stockpile. The second food is nutritional yeast. This second one is going to sound weird to most preppers, but it has been a game changer in my pantry. Before you click away thinking this is some vegan hippie food, hear me out. Nutritional yeast is basically deactivated yeast that tastes like cheese. It's loaded with B vitamins and complete protein, and it lasts up to 2 years in storage. But here's what makes it perfect for preppers. It adds that savory, cheesy flavor to any bland stockpile food without needing refrigeration. I learned about this from my neighbor who went plant-based a few years back. She kept raving about it, so I tried it. Put some on popcorn and I was hooked. Then I started researching it for prepping purposes and realized this is seriously overlooked. 2 tablespoons give you 8 grams of complete protein. That means all 9 essential amino acids your body needs. For comparison, that's almost as much protein as an egg. Plus, it's absolutely packed with B12, which is critical for your nervous system and brain function. Here's a real example. Last winter, during a power outage, we were eating a lot of rice and canned vegetables. By day 4, everyone was tired of the same boring taste. I started sprinkling nutritional yeast on everything, including rice, vegetables, and even mixed it into soups. The cheesy, nutty flavor completely changed the meals. My kids actually started asking for seconds.
The storage is dead simple. Keep it in an airtight container in a cool, dark place.
I use mason jars in my pantry. No special prep needed. And here is the kicker. Most preppers have never even heard of this stuff, which means during shortages, it is always available. I keep about 5 pounds in my stockpile. It costs me around $40 total. But think about what you are getting, a shelf-stable cheese alternative that boosts nutrition and makes bland food actually taste good. That is priceless when you are trying to keep morale up during a crisis. You can find it at health food stores, Whole Foods, and even online. Start with a small container and try it on your regular meals. Once you see how versatile it is, you will understand why this belongs in every prepper's pantry. The third item is canned coconut milk. It is hiding in plain sight at every grocery store, but almost no preppers stock it. I mean full-fat canned coconut milk, not the coconut water or beverage stuff. I'm talking about the thick, creamy coconut milk you find in the international aisle. Here is why this is brilliant. In a survival situation, fat is king. Your body needs it for energy, for absorbing vitamins, for keeping warm, and for brain function. And most prepper foods are dangerously low in fat. Rice has 0 fat. Beans have barely any. Those expensive freeze-dried meals strip most of the fat out to extend shelf life. But 1 can of coconut milk contains 50 grams of healthy fats, which is rocket fuel for your body. I learned this lesson the hard way on a winter camping trip 3 years ago. We were eating all our survival food, like rice, beans, and the usual stuff. After 3 days in the cold, we were exhausted, freezing, and could not think straight. My buddy, who does long-distance hiking, pulled out a can of coconut milk, heated it up with some rice, and within an hour, we all felt human again. The fat content literally saved us. But here's what makes this really next level. Coconut milk is incredibly versatile. Add it to rice to make it creamy and filling, stir it into soups to boost calories. You can even drink it straight for instant energy. And unlike dairy products, it is shelf-stable for years. I've got cans in my stockpile that are 3 years old and they're still perfect. They maintain quality for up to 5 years when stored properly. That's longer than most canned goods. Here's a survival hack. If you need to make a meal stretch further, add coconut milk. 1 cup of rice usually feeds 2 people. Add half a can of coconut milk, and suddenly it feeds 4 while significantly boosting the calories. The price is right, too. An average can costs about $2, sometimes less at Asian markets during sales. For 50 grams of healthy fats, that's incredible value. Compare that to those expensive emergency fat bars preppers buy for $8 each. I keep 50 cans organized by expiration date in my pantry. Oldest in front, newest in back, using a simple rotation. And I use them in regular cooking so nothing goes to waste. During high-stress situations, your body actually needs more fat than normal. Something about hormone production and nervous system function necessitates it. Coconut milk delivers that in a shelf-stable, affordable package that nobody is fighting over during shortages. The fourth food is potato flour. All right, this fourth one is going to sound strange, but this might be the smartest prep food nobody talks about. Not potato flakes, not instant mash, but actual potato flour. I stumbled onto this by accident. I was browsing a small European grocery store last year and saw these bags of potato flour just sitting there, covered in dust. Nobody was buying them, so I did some research. Turns out potato flour is what old-school Europeans used to survive entire winters, and there is a reason it works. First, the shelf life. When stored in an airtight container, this stuff lasts up to 10 years. Compare that to regular all-purpose flour, which starts going rancid after 8 months. But here's where it gets really interesting. Potato flour is naturally gluten-free. If you or someone in your family has celiac disease or gluten sensitivity, this becomes absolutely critical. During a collapse scenario, do you think stores are going to have gluten-free options? Not a chance. Nutritionally, it is a beast. It is high in resistant starch, which is the stuff that feeds good gut bacteria and actually helps you feel fuller longer. When you're rationing food, that feeling of fullness is psychological gold. Let me give you a real example. During a 3-day power outage last year, I used potato flour to make flatbreads on my camping stove. Mix with water, pinch of salt, cook on a pan, 5 minutes, and you've got bread. Here's the pro move. You can add potato flour to almost anything to thicken it up. Soups, stews, gravies. 1 tablespoon does the work of 3 tablespoons of cornstarch.
Storage tip that took me forever to figure out: don't store it in the bag it comes in. Get yourself a food-grade bucket with a gamma seal lid. Toss in an oxygen absorber. This is NASA-level preservation. I checked prices yesterday. A 5-pound bag runs about $8. That is dozens of meals. Meanwhile, preppers are dropping $200 on buckets of freeze-dried stuff that honestly tastes like cardboard. And here is something wild. Most survival food lists do not even mention potato flour, which means when everyone is panic buying, this will still be sitting on shelves. The fifth food is ghee. Stop right now, because what I'm about to share might be the single most valuable prepping secret I have kept for 3 years. Ghee. Before you think that is just fancy butter, let me hit you with something wild. I have a jar of ghee in my stockpile that has been sitting at room temperature for 4 years. 4 years! No refrigeration. And last week, I used it to cook dinner. Tasted absolutely perfect. Here is something that will blow your mind. Archaeologists in India found sealed containers of ghee that were over 5,000 years old, still edible. That is not some prepper myth. That is documented history. But here is why most preppers are completely missing this. While everyone is panic buying freeze-dried butter powder for $30 a container, ghee is sitting right there in your grocery store for $12, and it literally lasts forever. Let me tell you about last summer when everything clicked. A massive heat wave knocked out power in my area for 2 weeks straight. My neighbor, a great guy and serious prepper, came knocking on day 5. All his butter had melted into this disgusting puddle. His expensive coconut oil had separated and gone rancid. He was almost in tears. Meanwhile, my ghee was sitting on my counter in 95-degree heat, still golden, still perfect, still ready to use. Here is what changed my entire prepping strategy. Ghee's unique molecular structure makes it immune to oxidation. It cannot go rancid. It is chemically impossible. But wait, it gets even better. Ghee actually improves with age. Like wine, the flavor compounds concentrate over time, making it more aromatic. Ancient Ayurvedic texts talk about 100-year-old ghee being used as medicine. We're talking about food that becomes more valuable the longer you store it. Your body needs fat. Not wants, needs. For warmth, for brain function, for absorbing vitamins, for energy. Most prepper foods are dangerously low in fat. Rice has 0. Beans have almost none. But 1 tablespoon of ghee provides pure, concentrated energy that will keep you going. Here's my personal secret. I keep 2 types in my stockpile. Regular ghee for everyday cooking, and cultured ghee, which has this insanely rich, nutty flavor for when morale is low and we need something that feels like normal life. A pro tip that will save you hundreds is to buy grass-fed ghee. Yeah, it costs a couple dollars more, but the nutritional profile is next level. 1 jar costs about $15 and will literally outlast everything else in your pantry. Storage is brain-dead simple. Keep it in the original glass jar at room temperature. That's it. No Mylar bags, no oxygen absorbers, no special containers. Just sitting there, waiting forever. And here's my go-to recipe that turned my family's mood around during a week-long power outage. Heat up your boring stockpile rice. Stir in a tablespoon of ghee and a pinch of salt. The transformation is insane. Suddenly, your emergency food tastes like something from a restaurant. World War II soldiers figured this out decades ago. Indian troops used ghee specifically because it handled extreme heat and extreme cold, needed 0 refrigeration, and provided critical calories when everything else failed. So while other preppers are wasting money on freeze-dried fats and butter powder that expires in 2 years, I've got liquid gold sitting in my pantry that my grandkids could use. The 6th food is dried seaweed. This is where things get interesting. I'm not asking you to eat kelp smoothies, but stay with me here. Japanese researchers made headlines recently with a discovery that changed how I think about storage. They found intact dried seaweed in 1,000-year-old temple storage jars. You heard that right, 1,000 years. And when they tested the nutritional profile, it was still impressive. But here's what nobody in the prepping community talks about. Just 1 sheet of nori contains more iodine than most people consume in an entire week. And iodine is critical for your thyroid, which controls basically everything your body does. Let me share a story. Last winter, my neighbor, a fellow prepper stocked to the teeth with all the usual stuff, came down with serious fatigue issues during a 2-week power outage. The doctor later told him it was iodine deficiency. Meanwhile, my family was fine. Why? Because I had been rotating dried seaweed into our meals for months.
Here is the genius part. Most preppers do not even look at this stuff, which means it is always in stock. I walked into the market last week and saw fully stocked shelves of every type you can imagine. Nori, wakame, dulse, each brings unique benefits. Nori packs crazy amounts of protein. Wakame is loaded with magnesium, essential for energy and mood. And dulse is your natural salt alternative. Here is my dead simple method. Crumble 1 sheet of nori into your rice while it is cooking. That is it. It adds this subtle, rich flavor that honestly makes your stockpile food taste gourmet. Plus, and this is something the big prepper channels will not tell you, seaweed is one of the most environmentally friendly emergency foods you can store. It requires no refrigeration, takes up almost no space, and unlike rice or beans, producing it does not stress freshwater supplies. I keep 3 different types in my stockpile. It cost me about $45 total, and that's a year's supply for my family. Compare that to freeze-dried meals at $15 a pouch. The 7th food is chia seeds. Honestly, when I first discovered this, I felt like an idiot for not figuring it out sooner. Chia seeds. Now I know what you were thinking, those trendy health food seeds. But stay with me, because what I am about to share will change your entire approach to prepping. Chia seeds were so valuable to Aztec warriors that they received them as payment. These were not just any seeds. They were literally used as currency because they were that important for survival. Here is why modern preppers need to pay attention. Chia seeds maintain their omega-3 content far longer than fish oil supplements. We're talking years, and 1 teaspoon of chia seeds contains more omega-3 fatty acids than an entire serving of salmon. But here's the game changer nobody talks about. Chia seeds absorb up to 12 times their weight in water. In a survival situation where water is precious, this is absolutely critical. Let me explain why. When you eat chia seeds, they absorb water in your stomach and form this gel. This slows digestion dramatically, which means you feel full way longer and your body has more time to extract nutrition from your food. Last year, I did an experiment, ate my normal rice and beans breakfast, and I was hungry again in 3 hours. The next day, I added just 1 tablespoon of chia seeds to the same meal and stayed full for 7 hours. Do you understand what this means in a rationing situation? You can stretch your food supply significantly just by adding chia seeds to every meal. Here's another insane fact. Chia seeds require 0 cooking. You can eat them raw, soak them in water for a gel, or sprinkle them on literally anything. In a bug-out situation where cooking is not possible, this is massive. Storage. When vacuum sealed in amber glass containers, they maintain their nutritional value for up to 5 years. I personally keep 10 pounds in my hidden stockpile, which cost me about $60 total. That's essentially 25,000 nutritional insurance policies. During a 2-week camping trip last summer, I carried just 2 pounds of chia seeds, mixed them with water, oatmeal, rice, whatever. The energy boost was noticeable, and I needed significantly less food overall because I stayed full longer. Here's something the big prepper channels will not tell you. Chia seeds are nature's own miracle for hydration in hot survival situations. Eating chia seeds helps your body retain water better. This was discovered by studying how Aztec messengers could run over 100 miles in scorching heat while eating mainly chia seeds. They contain complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids. For vegetarian preppers or situations where meat is unavailable, this is critical. The 8th food is instant noodle blocks from Asian markets. This is where I'm going to lose some hardcore prepper credibility, but I do not care. I mean high-quality instant noodle blocks from Asian grocery stores. And no, I am not talking about those cheap 25-cent ramen packs. I'm talking about the legitimate instant noodle blocks you find at Asian grocery stores, brands that locals actually eat daily. Let me tell you a story. 2 years ago, I was doing a 30-day test run of my food stockpile, actually eating what I had stored to see if I could really survive on it. By day 12, I was so sick of rice and beans that I almost gave up. My wife was cranky, kids were complaining. Then I remembered these instant noodle blocks I had grabbed from an Asian market. It was a game changer. Here's what makes these different from regular ramen. First, the noodle quality is actually real. We're talking wheat-based, sometimes egg-based noodles that have actual nutrition. Some varieties pack 8 to 10 grams of protein per serving. But the real magic is the seasoning packets. These are not just MSG and
We are talking complex spice blends, dried vegetables, real mushroom powder, genuine soup bases, and varied flavors. Now, you might be thinking, aren't those unhealthy? Sure, they are not perfect, but here is what hardcore preppers do not understand about human psychology. In a real emergency, when you are eating the same thing for weeks, morale matters more than you think. Research shows that food monotony during extended emergencies contributes significantly to decision fatigue and decreased problem-solving abilities. Translation: boring food makes you stupid when you need to be smart most. I personally keep about 100 blocks in my secondary storage. It costs less than $50 total. Each block provides a full meal, takes 3 minutes to prepare, requires minimal water, and the variety keeps you sane. Here is the insider move. Go to your local Asian supermarket and hit up their instant noodle section. Look for brands that locals actually eat. Avoid the ones with refrigerate after opening on the seasoning packet. Stick to fully shelf-stable options. Storage is simple. Keep them in original packaging, but store in large plastic bins. You stack them flat and they take up surprisingly little space. And here's the kicker. During actual shortages, nobody thinks to panic buy at the Asian grocery store. While other shelves are stripped bare, these markets are often fully stocked because most people do not even think to go there. The ninth food is textured vegetable protein. This is something most preppers have never heard of, but it has been quietly used by survivalists for decades. Textured vegetable protein, also called TVP. This is dehydrated soy protein that comes in chunks or granules. It is incredibly lightweight, lasts for years, and here's the magic. When rehydrated, it has the texture of ground meat. I discovered this while researching how hikers manage protein on long trails. They cannot carry heavy cans, so they use TVP. 1 pound of dried TVP rehydrates to equal about 3 pounds of ground meat. The shelf life is incredible. When stored in airtight containers with oxygen absorbers, TVP can last 10 to 15 years, and the protein content is off the charts, about 50 grams of protein per cup. Here's how I use it. Soak it in hot water or broth for about 10 minutes. It absorbs the liquid and becomes this meat-like texture. Then you can use it in chili, tacos, spaghetti sauce, anywhere you would normally use ground meat. The cost is ridiculous. A 1-pound bag runs about $6 and makes the equivalent of 3 pounds of ground meat. Compare that to freeze-dried meat at $20 per pouch. I keep about 20 pounds in my stockpile. That's the equivalent of 60 pounds of ground meat, taking up a fraction of the space and costing a fraction of the price. Storage tip: transfer it from the original bag into Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, or use food-grade buckets. Keep it cool and dry, and it will outlast most of your other preps. The 10th food is powdered milk in Mylar. This one is old school, but most preppers store it wrong. You need to repackage it properly. Most people buy powdered milk and leave it in the box. That is a mistake. The cardboard lets in moisture and air. Your powdered milk will be clumpy and gross within months. Here's what I do. Buy powdered milk in bulk. Transfer it immediately into Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. Seal them with an impulse sealer. Stored this way, powdered milk lasts 15 to 20 years. The nutrition is solid. It's a good source of calcium, protein, vitamin D, and it's incredibly versatile. You can reconstitute it for drinking, use it in baking, add it to coffee, make yogurt, even make cheese. I keep about 30 pounds in my stockpile. It cost me around $80, but think about what you're getting. Decades of shelf-stable dairy that requires no refrigeration. Here's a pro tip. Mix half powdered milk and half fresh milk in your regular cooking. Your family gets used to the taste gradually, and when you need to use only powdered milk, it's not a shock. During a crisis, dairy disappears fast. Having a reliable supply of powdered milk means you can still make comfort foods like pancakes, muffins, and creamy soups. The 11th food is hard winter wheat berries. This is the foundation that serious preppers understand, but casual preppers overlook. Hard winter wheat berries. This is whole, unground wheat. When stored properly in food-grade buckets with oxygen absorbers, it lasts 30 years or more. Some people say indefinitely. Here's why this matters. Regular flour goes rancid in less than a year, but whole wheat berries stay fresh for decades. When you're ready to use them, you grind them into fresh flour. The nutrition of freshly ground flour is incomparable to store-bought. All the vitamins, minerals, and healthy fats are intact.
Store-bought flour has been sitting for months, losing nutrition the entire time. Now, you are thinking that you do not have a grain mill. Here's the thing. A hand crank grain mill costs about $60, which is a one-time investment, and in a grid-down situation, you've got the ability to make fresh bread indefinitely. I keep 200 pounds of hard winter wheat in 5-gallon buckets. It cost me about $70. That is enough flour for my family for over a year. But here's what makes this really powerful. Wheat berries are incredibly calorie-dense, about 1,600 calories per pound. When you are in survival mode and need maximum calories, wheat delivers. You can also sprout wheat berries for fresh greens in winter, or cook them whole like rice for a chewy, nutritious grain, or make wheat grass for juicing. The versatility is unmatched, and while everyone else is fighting over bags of flour that will go bad in months, you've got decades of fresh flour waiting in your pantry. Look, here's the bottom line. While everyone else is fighting over the same tired prepper foods, you now know 11 items that are cheaper, easier to store, more nutritious, and will actually still be available when shortages hit. These are the foods I genuinely keep in my stockpile, not because I'm selfish, but because I learned the hard way that the best survival strategy is not following the crowd, it's thinking differently. Hit that like button if this gave you some new ideas. Subscribe for more unconventional survival strategies that actually work, and drop a comment telling me which of these 11 foods you are going to stock up on first. Next week, I'm revealing the 3 tools everyone thinks are essential, but are actually worthless in a real collapse scenario. Trust me, you do not want to miss that one. Stay calm, stay steady, and I will see you in the next one.